Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
We want to check in with Chris. How you doing,
Chris?
bud?
How you feeling?
I'm doing well. The beast comes at night. You know, as we know, the healthcare workers have taken to calling the virus the beast. I understand why. My fever has gone up a couple of degrees in like the last 30 minutes. Nights are tough. And I've learned something that I didn't know before. It is responsible journalism to say that 80% of people who get this statistically wind up okay, meaning they don't go to the hospital, they get through it. It is not humanly responsible, though, from an ethical perspective. Now that I'm one of the anointed and these people reach out to me, you suffer when you have this at home unless you are ridiculously lucky statistically and maybe karmically as well. I can't tell you how many stories I've had of people who have had over 100, 102 fever for 8, 10, 12 days.
Oh,
and just to tell you
God.
what kind of toll that can take. Look, it's not about life or death. I don't mean it that way. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing the show. I'm not looking to scare people. I'm trying to do the opposite. I've lost 13 pounds in 3 days.
Oh, my God.
Now, I'm a big guy. I started off at 230 pounds. My wife is feeding me like, you know, we were still in the dating phase. You know, so it's not like I'm hurting for nutrition. I'm eating and drinking constantly. I'm just sweating it out, and it's the sickness. So, yeah, 80%, we're going to make it through. But the idea that it's easy, so you can be nonchalant, that is so misleading, fellas. That I now know for fact.
Sake.
Oh. Fever for 8 to 10 to 12 to, oh, you know, and I don't know what's going on at CNN, but I'm glad I don't work there. Just be glad you don't work there. Brooke Baldwin also just tested positive for coronavirus. She says, I'm okay. She said it came on suddenly yesterday afternoon. Chills, aches, fever. She is the second CNN anchor to test positive for COVID. Can you imagine being a producer there? Can you imagine being the makeup person there? Can you imagine being the craft services person there? Can you imagine being the executive producer? I mean, this is like, this is crazy. And if you think that people in TV don't work in close quarters, you've never been inside of a news organization. My God, they have bullpens where it's just, you know, cubicles, one after the other in what they, you know, some people call it a bullpen. That's what we used to call it, you know, at Air America. That was a network news organization. And I never saw such close quarter. And I just cannot believe that she's now tested. I mean, it just, you know, is Brooke and Chris, were they touching? I don't know. But it's just an amazing thing. The numbers from yesterday at 2 o'clock, we had 234,000 some odd cases, and today 261,000 cases. Yesterday, we started the show with 5,586 perished, and today 6,699. There are 102,863 confirmed cases just in New York City. New Jersey is coming up from the rear, everybody. From the rear. They're almost at 30,000. So this thing is just moving. It's just moving. And people who just don't take this seriously, people who are, you know, out there coughing in people's faces, people who thought spring break 2 weeks ago was a good idea, people who will go to church this Sunday. Are you freaking kidding me? I got to tell you, Florida is earning quite the reputation on every front. Now you can see why people do the hashtag Florida man. Not only do we have some of the strangest inhabitants here, because pretty much hardly anybody is really from here, but we have the strangest politicians ever produced by man, with the exception of maybe Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi, although Louisiana occasionally picks a good one, gotta say. But I cannot believe what's going on here in Florida. You know, we finally got the child abusive, Ron DeSantis, who ran by putting his newborn in a onesie that clearly said, "Make America Great Again." That was his campaign. That was his TV ad. That his wife, who's now just had another baby. So we were relieved when he said, okay, I get it. We need to shut down, 10 people, get large gatherings of 10 or more statewide. We really need. This is a man that would not close the beaches because he said they were already here. What did you want me to do? Okay, everybody try and remember when you were young and you were in a place where you weren't supposed to be, and how the police came and dispersed you. Does anybody remember anything like that? Except for Woodstock, that happened all the time. Woodstock was the only time when the police apparently dropped some acid and said, "Hey, this is fun." But with that exception being carved out. So DeSantis wouldn't stop the spring breakers, who then went back to the Midwest, who then went back to Texas, who then went back to, far-flung places, and started to breathe on other people and spreading this damn thing to almost every single solitary state in the union. I think every state's got at least 200 cases. But anyway, so Rick DeSantis decided he was going to do a loophole. He was going to do a carve-out, and guess what it is? Guess what it is? Yep, churches. You could go to church. You go to a mega church on Sunday. He doesn't. He won't. No, it's fine. And in Hillsborough County, which is on the West Coast, they said, all we can say is better get the hospitals in gear. They know what this is going to bring. Georgia's doing it too. Texas is doing it too. Mega churches. You could have your services this week. Are you freaking out of your? Because they believe that Jesus juice will save them. This is the elixir, the tonic. When I think of the Bible now, I think of two things. One, because I'm a Jew, I think of Passover. Go look it up. Disease passes over your house. The plague, one of the many, passes over your house. Hence the name Passover, if you're a Jew. Oh, fingers crossed, everybody. Fingers crossed. But you also think of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. If you're not. So what is the dealio with this? Why can't everybody just stay home? Just phone it in. They used to do it on the radio when I worked in West Texas. That was my very first job. I worked on the weekend. Sunday, I had to run the church shows. Oh, yay, though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death. Mama, it's the great scourge of the Mary Jane. It's the Mary Junie. Whatever. And send me $5 and I'll keep your child free from the scourge of the marijuana. Holy crap. Just phone it in. God does not care where you are. Why do you have to do that? This is just, and so now they're saying, just get ready. Just get ready. Wherever there's a megachurch around you, just get ready. Florida, Ohio, Texas, freaking Michigan, Kansas. You can have megachurch gatherings. You can have gatherings more than 10 as long as you're praying about it. I mean, what is that? What is that? I don't understand it. And then yesterday we had another one of these I don't even understand. Like, nobody wants to stand next to him. Do you get this? You understand this? I asked you yesterday, why is he doing this? Meaning nothing. Why is he letting states outbid each other for masks and gloves and gowns and ventilators? Why are we doing what? And nobody wants to stand next to him anymore. Nobody. So yesterday, the day before, we had Bill Barr and General Milley giving us some some drug war briefing. Yesterday, we had to suffer through, Pee Wee Herman there. Jared Kushner, he makes Pee Wee Herman look like Vin Diesel, this guy. I mean, if you went to Central Casting and you asked for a weak and ineffectual middle manager guy, they would send you Jared Kushner and about 10 headshots that look just like him. You can't do better than Jared for mealy-mouthed.
all things Randy at randyrhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Oh, everybody, here is your president.
But there'll be a time when we're going to build stockpiles. By the way, the states should have been building their stockpile. We have almost 10,000 in our stockpile, and we've been building it, and we've been supplying it. But the states should be building. We're a backup. We're not an ordering clerk. We're a backup. And we've done an unbelievable job. Like, for instance, who ever heard of a governor calling up, "Sir, can you build us a hospital of 2,500 rooms?" And we built it. "Can you build us 4 medical centers?" We built it. "Can you deliver a ship, a hospital ship, with 1,000 rooms?" And we did it. And we did it in Los Angeles, too. We've done an unbelievable job. These people.
Oh, my God. The wartime president thinks each state should protect itself. You know, didn't I always tell you that one of the things that was socialistic in this country was the fact that each and every person gets military protection regardless of their ability to pay? Scratch that. Scratch that. You're all on your own now. The wartime president doesn't believe that he has to protect and defend all the states. No, not all of them. And this UNSN Comfort, what is somebody telling? United States Navy ship? I don't know. I'm not a Navy person. I'm in the Air Force. But the Comfort is called the Comfort, and yet it won't comfort the COVID. I don't even understand why he's bragging about it. The thing's got 20 patients on board. It's got 20 people on board, and the Mercy has 15. It's called the Mercy. Change the name. Call it the Trump or something, because the Comfort will only treat people with things other than COVID. Bad news if you have COVID and you're in New York or LA, but good news for anybody who wants a tummy tuck right now, I guess. I don't know. It's called the Comfort and the Mercy, and there is no comfort and there is no mercy on those ships. And there are 49 other ailments listed on their do not take list. So you've got these, he's bragging. I sent, a big white ship with a big cross on it to LA, and I sent one just like that to New York. But they can't take patients. It's not just COVID, 49 other ailments that do not qualify for you to be brought on either of those ships. Now, the ship has 1,000 hospital beds and a crew of 1,200 and a grand total of 20 patients. And the crew says they're mostly idle, which is good news because maybe they'll get to visit New York at a time when it's not so crowded, except that they have to stay on board. They're not allowed off. Holy crap, this is unbelievable. So, the only effect that the Comfort has had on the virus is when they all went down to the pier and got to welcome it in a crowd, in a giant crowd. Yes, that's what happened in New York. A giant crowd went to welcome the Comfort, causing the virus to spread. I don't even understand this man. Okay, so he says he's not a shipping clerk, okay? He doesn't see his job as being president of all the states. He doesn't see it that way. He has a stockpile, and he is doling out from his stockpile stuff that he thinks you need based on Jared's data. Jared, it's all going to be data-driven. It's all going to be data-driven, except the slumlord son-in-law, slumlord. Remember that is how Jared makes his money, slumlord. Now, you think about all these foreclosures that are about to happen. Okay, you think about that. And then think about Jared enriching himself by buying all your empty houses and renting them out. I mean, I don't know what else to think about these people anymore. I just don't know what the purpose of ignoring this for so long and this lame lying that goes on every day, all day, by the President of the United States. I don't know what it's all about. I don't know what it's all about. Some of you wrote me yesterday. I read all of your theories. Most people think he's just incompetent. And, it feels bigger than that to me. It just, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but yes, you've got two people in charge, Jared and Donald Trump. who couldn't make a living in the casino and real estate business in New York City. Okay, I get it. They're losers. I understand. And they both inherited large, vast fortunes and piddled them away. Whatever. But here you have the son-in-law slumlord real estate failure guiding the father-in-law bankrupt casino owner real estate failure. And the son-in-law, the slumlord, is telling the casino bankrupt failure in real estate that it's all going to be data-driven, except that at the press conference yesterday, he actually admitted that Donald Trump's friends called him, Jared, and pressed him to release some PPE to New York hospitals because they were in very bad shape. And they were public hospitals. The Daily Beast reported New York's public hospital system only received 1 month's worth of desperately needed N95 masks on Thursday after President Trump heard from friends that they were critically low on supplies, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner said. Hospital workers in New York, the U.S. coronavirus epicenter, have been begging for weeks for more PPE, personal protective gear, telling harrowing stories of having to reuse masks for days, wearing garbage bags as gowns, and asking for local donations of gloves. The national stockpile of equipment is running low, and states are bidding against each other for what's left on the global market. Here's what Jared said yesterday. Quote, very early this morning, I got a call from the president. He told me he was hearing from friends of his in New York that the New York public hospital system, that's Elmhurst Hospital, for example, was running low on critical supply. He said he called Dr. Mitchell Katz, CEO of New York City Health and Hospitals, who told him they needed N95 masks the most, so Kushner sourced a month's worth from the federal stockpile. And then told his father-in-law, go ahead and call de Blasio and tell him that, a month's worth are on the way. Jared stood up last night and also said the stockpiles aren't for the states. They're for us, he said, as if there are federal residents of the United States. United States. But that there are some other residents that are part of the United States that aren't in the states. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't think he knew what he was talking about. They brought an admiral up there yesterday to try and explain what he was talking about. And when the admiral was asked, what do these people do when they're out of supplies if the stockpile isn't theirs and if there's nothing left on the commercial market to buy? And he said, the admiral, I don't know what this president has done to our military, but the admiral stood up and said, if you have a problem getting supplies, call your state. Don't call us. Call your state. What is going on? See, now this is on purpose, right? These are press conferences where they choose to say these things to the people of the United States. They're choosing this. They're affirmatively saying these things.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Do you think if this guy didn't have, a family that was worth billions, that he would be anywhere near Ivanka? Do you think? Okay, I just asking.
And you have instances where in cities they're running out, but the state still has a stockpile. And the notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then use. So we're encouraging the states to make sure that they're assessing the needs, they're getting the data from their local situations, and then trying to fill it with the supplies that we've given them.
Oh my God, the United States stockpile that's full of equipment that we purchase with our tax dollars is not for us. It's for him. It's for them. Whoever they are. I don't know who they are. This is just so unbelievable. And then Donald Trump says, we're not an ordering clerk. Also, we found out that it was Jared that told Donald Trump that Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, would not need 30,000 ventilators. Did I bother to tell you that New York's got 100,000 cases? Did I? I think I did. You know, this idea that they don't need 30,000 ventilators with 100,000 people testing positive or, showing up with COVID. I don't know where they're getting this stuff and why are they lying to us? And then when Trump was asked, what are you saying? Where are the states supposed to get their stuff? He said, if they waited, they lost, meaning die.
What happens, though, when states are bidding against each other on those markets?
Well, they have that, and they have to work that out. What they should do is they should have, long before this pandemic arrived, they should have been on the open market just buying. There was no competition. You could have made a great price. The states have to stock up. It's like one of those things. They waited. They didn't want to spend the money because they thought this would never happen. And their shelves, in some cases, were bare. And by the way, in some cases, they weren't. They were beautifully serviced. They did a good job. But in some cases, their shelves were bare. So the best thing they can do is when times become normalized, and they will, hopefully soon, and actually, you're going to have a lot of excess material because so much is being done right now in terms of protective gear, protective outfits. A lot's being done. It's going to be, within 6 months, it's going to be sold for the right price. They got to stack up for the next time. But we are doing that, and the Admiral has done a fantastic job. Senator Schumer wrote a letter today, and he says, you should put a military man in charge. I said, well, Chuck, if you knew a little bit more, we have one of the most highly respected people in the military, the Admiral. This is what he does, too, very professionally. And he's in charge, but Chuck didn't know that.
Chuck didn't know that. Here's the Admiral that's in charge, okay? So he was asked the same damn question. What about the states? What are they supposed to do?
Logjam, where has it been? How have you identified that? Because as you say, all this, millions more PPE is going out the door. As you well know, the frontline medical workers
I would answer you this way. We put up a lot of numbers. I said that if you're in a hospital and you're not seeing PPE, I would look up to the state level first.
From governors saying they can't get the medical equipment that they need.
But the states and the governors are saying that they can't get the medical equipment they need. Oh, too bad. This is who we put in charge. This is the guy. You had Mark Milley, the Joint Chiefs yesterday, briefing you on the drug war. I mean, what in the world? And then, this Admiral, I just promoted him, Captain. This Captain Crozier, who was in charge of the Theodore Roosevelt, right? The aircraft carrier, who wrote a letter to his superiors, which, by the way, got leaked to the press and printed in the San Francisco Chronicle. It was a very long article that was in the homework a couple days ago, screaming, my guys are testing positive for COVID. I got 93 positive tests here. We're in close quarters, blah, blah, blah. What would you like us to do? That letter got leaked to the press, and they're embarrassed, and they relieved him of his command yesterday. The captain that protected the readiness of his vessel, the sailors on his vessel, the captain who was in charge of nearly 5,000 sailors, was relieved of his command yesterday. These people are, well, they're bastards, is what they are. You don't even want to say ruthless because that implies some skill, right? I'd rather have somebody who's relentless than ruthless, just so you know. I'm relentless. They're ruthless, but they're bastards. They're bastards. So this guy, after the letter came out, they were asking him, are you going to move these soldiers off? What are you going to do about these soldiers? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I'm not going to move them all off. We're not going to remove them all. This was yesterday.
We began seeking additional space in Guam and elsewhere right away. We're making progress on that process. We already have nearly 1,000 personnel off the ship right now.
Yay.
And in the next couple of days, we expect to have about 2,700 of them off the ship. One thing I want to emphasize as well is that we cannot and will not remove all the sailors from the ship. And that's not what the commanding officer requested either, nor the medical team.
That's the guy that fired him, okay? That's our acting. Yeah. He's our acting Secretary of the Navy, Maudley, and he fired removed from his command, Captain Crozier. I want to show you Captain Crozier's sailors as he was told to leave his own ship, as he was relieved of his command. There he is, walking off. How amazing, right? I mean, obviously his sailors, totally respect him and love him. And they removed him. They took him off his command. Maudley said, he said he sent the letter over non-secure, unclassified email. What about the email? That's his crime. He sent it over non-secure, unclassified email. He said, unfortunately, I have no doubt in my mind that Captain Crozier did what he thought was in the best interest of the safety and well-being of his crew. Unfortunately, it did the opposite. It unnecessarily raised the alarm of the families of our sailors and Marines with no plans to address those concerns. Are you freaking kidding me? Trump is just burning this whole place down to the ground. You understand that? He really is. This country is on its knees. The unemployment numbers came out, but, they don't take into account the last 2 weeks. So we're at 4.4% unemployment without taking into account the last 2 weeks. There was an underlying recession, right? There was a problem. I told you manufacturing was in a technical recession. You would think this president would want to use the Defense Protection Act, and he would put everybody to work like a president does. Do you think FDR, or a day that will live in infamy? Hey, we're going to protect, I don't know, maybe California, but not Arizona. Arizona, you talk to the other states. Go ahead and, barter with them to see if you need protect. I mean, maybe we'll protect Oregon. I don't know. Hawaii, what's your offer? Tell me what you'll offer for me to defend you against a Japanese attack.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
As you can see from my face, these battle scars of having worn my new P100 donated by my brother for the entire day, the entire 10-hour shift. And I'm now feeling a little relieved just to survive another day for now.
The things that I see in the ER are scary. I'm a little scared myself. This is our ED. You can see all the rooms are filled. Usually these halls are very neat and empty. And now you can see there's patients everywhere because of this.
We, medical staff here or across the country, share that anxiety about this virus, not knowing what is to come tomorrow or the day after or in the month after.
Yes, we are exhausted. However, as exhausted and frustrated as I am, I've never been so proud to be a nurse in healthcare than I am right now. But I'm scared, and we all are.
All of us are so passionate and so committed and dedicated to serving the public and our patients, coupled with that real concern that we might bring something home to our vulnerable family and potentially make them really sick and unwell. And we've seen that can be, devastating.
This morning, actually over the weekend, my wife and I decided that it would be safer for our family, for our 17-month-old daughter and my wife to leave our apartment until this is over, since I'm in and out of this high-risk environment every day. I don't know how long it's going to be, but this morning when I left the house, I said goodbye to my wife and my daughter for who knows how long. It's going to be several weeks probably before I see them in person again.
These people are amazing, and calling them heroes sort of makes it sound like you've done enough. Send the equipment they signed up for. This is really, he's a wartime president who is sending in the front line without any ammunition, without any armor, without I mean, this is just so like them. It's like the problem we had with the up-armored Humvees and the helmets that didn't protect anybody from anything. Do you know, I don't know why the GOP is like this. I don't know why the stockpiles belong to them. I don't know why they declare war on unarmed countries. I don't know why they're so willing to sacrifice American lives all the time. All the time. What is the game? I don't know what the game is. I don't know what game they're playing. But America is on its knees, literally. I mean, it's just this is the most broken I've ever seen our government. This is the most exposed I've ever seen our government. This is the most. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. It's like states are not even testing. I got a note last night about our testing here in the one test center that we have for this whole county. Palm Beach County's got 1.5 million people in it, and we have one testing center. And they sent out a little note yesterday telling everybody that they got too many phone calls and they were closing the phone lines for the day yesterday afternoon, and that they would open the phone lines again this morning at 8 o'clock, and they would take as many phone calls as they could until they booked 500 appointments. And those would be the final 500 tests that they could administer, and they'll do it on Monday, and that's it. What kind of a response is this? The SBA loans, the Small Business Administration loans that everybody was hoping they could get to keep their business. I mean, we are a small business, right? I tried to, look at the app. I got a sample application. It didn't look too difficult. It looked like, hey, you could fill this out in about 10 minutes. They could verify, because you had to go to a bank that you had done business with as a small business. So I thought, well, they've been charging me all these merchant services fees for, years. Surely they would say. I got a note back saying that I don't qualify. They can't find that I'm a small business that's done business with them. They don't see that they've been charging me thousands of dollars a month to process merchant fees. They couldn't find anything like. And then you just sit there and you go, what are they trying? Then you call them up, okay, and they go, well, we don't know what the rules are. We really don't know. So we just sent that out. If you're with JP Chase, if you're with Chase Bank, JP Morgan Chase, you got a note last night that said we're not participating in this SBA program. We don't even know what the guidelines are. We don't know what the rules are. We have no idea. Are we going to get stuck making these loans to you and then having to forgive them, and the Treasury is going to stiff us? We don't trust the President of the United States. His word means nothing. I mean, that's basically the message that went out to small businesses. And Steve Mnuchin stood on a stage last night and said, oh, no. Oh, everything that, the checks, everything's going to go out. It's all going to be good. Don't you worry about it, blah, blah, blah. But the president also stands on the stage and says, I'm invoking the Defense Production Act, but won't put it into practice. So it's like invoking and putting into practice, it's the difference between words and action. See what I mean? Saying things does not make them happen. And I swear to God, I couldn't believe he stood on the stage last night and he said, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. Everything's good. You'll be able to do this in a couple of days. It'd be great.
The Chase Bank sent a letter to its business clients today saying that they don't have the necessary guidance from the SBA, from the Treasury Department, to be able to accept loan applications starting tomorrow. The need is clearly enormous. But at least one major bank says they're not fully empowered yet to be able to help there.
Well, as I spoke to all the CEOs yesterday, I had a conference call with them. We got very good input from them on what they needed. As I said, people were working till 4 o'clock. I believe we just put up the Federal Register with the new guidelines for lenders. I've been assured that the banks will be in the process starting tomorrow. Now, again, it's going to take a little bit of time, but we committed that this will be available tomorrow, and I encourage all companies, go to SBA.com, go to Treasury.gov. You can see the information you need immediately.
A lot of the banks are literally boycotting this. They are boycotting this program. The Bank Policy Institute, that's who hosted that call. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup are the members of this group, and they aren't commenting to the press. They don't want to give a comment. But some of the people who spoke to the press said We don't want to participate in a scheme in its the scheme in its current form. They're worried about money laundering. They're worried about fraud. They're worrying about protecting their own customers' information because they have to follow the Bank Secrecy Act. They think people are going to get in there, and by people I mean Donald Trump, Jared Kushner, and the Steve Mnuchins of the world. They think that they're going to get in there and they're going to, launder money through it. They're going to, do fraudulent application. They're worried. The banks are literally worried that they would face penalties and legal costs down the line if they don't follow, some sort of a guidance from the administration. And they only issued the guidance like at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The thing went into practice today and people are like, I can't help you. I can't. And so they're sending out these notices saying, well, we can't find that you have a business account. I'm like, I'm writing you inside my online business account. Okay, give us 20 minutes. They never called back. There's $2 trillion worth of money now that's sloshing around out there, and some people know how to get it, and some people just being told, we're not so sure if we should give it to you. Not so sure if we should give it to you. So the Treasury, Mnuchin, says he's considering withdrawing the guidance that they issued yesterday and creating, this is like, wow, this is, and a lot of people who are small businesses will never, if I pulled the plug on this now, if I had to, it would never come back. It could never come back. There's no way it could come back. And that's the situation that so many small, and 50% of America work for a small business. This is why they're talking about the recovery at the end of this pandemic being not what the president is selling. Okay, they're saying, it could be a V shape where, it goes down and then boom, it comes back. But if 50% of America works for a small business that isn't going to be able to pay its bills in May. Now, I know we paid our bills in April. We made it. We did it. Woo! What about May? What about May? And that's what every small business owner is thinking. What do I do in May? How do I do this? How do I keep the thing functioning? How do I pay the bills? How do I pay the rent? How do I pay the utilities? How do I pay the staff? How do I pay myself? How do I, how do you pay for the services that you pay for every month to have whatever it is that you need to supply yourself with? In my case, it's data. In my case, it's, platforms. In my case, I have to push out an enormous amount of data to an enormous number of platforms, right? How do you pay for those services? How do you pay for all of it if you're not giving your service, right? You'll never come back.
Mary had a little man. The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
They're much worse than we thought. We knew would be bad. It's much worse than we thought. 701,000 jobs lost in March. The unemployment rate jumps up to 4.4%. Keep in mind, the labor market is deteriorating so quickly, the monthly numbers can't keep up. So we didn't think that this number would be really reflective of how dangerous the labor market is right now. But this is worse than we thought. Obviously, the worst month for the job market since the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. Leisure and hospitality lost 459,000 jobs. These are almost all in food service and bars and restaurants and restaurants. So this is just showing you exactly where we've seen the leading edge of the layoffs and the like. I will tell you this. A lot of economists say we are already today at 10% unemployment. These numbers, as ugly as they look, are still not even keeping up with what we've seen over the past 2.5 weeks. You're likely have unemployment right now in this country, an unemployment rate that will surpass the Great Recession.
Wow. Let that sink in. Want to see a chart? This is amazing. Now, if you're listening, you're not going to hear any sound because this is a visual thing. It's an animation of the unemployment in the United States over the last 100 years. Okay, you just can see how boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust, right? You could see, right? Boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust, because that's what capitalism is, right? Now we're up to 2010, now 2020. Look at that. Watch. Oh my God. Oh my God. And it's just started. It's just started. This is the first jobs report that we got during the coronavirus pandemic, but it predates the last 2 weeks, or the last week. It doesn't take into account the 10 million new unemployed. And by the way, it's stunning how Florida, under Rick Scott, who is the most culpable, jailable. I mean, Rick Scott was the CEO of HCA, big, giant hospital chain in Florida. And probably, some of you have HCA hospitals too. Well, they literally had committed the largest Medicare fraud in their billing in the history of Medicare. And this man, Rick Scott, went on to be our governor. And now the senator, the junior senator from Florida, along with idiot boy Marco Rubio. This is why Florida is Florida, okay? Now, the governor now, Rick DeSantis, he's the one that said, hey, I'm creating mega churches, you could have gatherings of more than 10. They're going to be spreading more than the word on Sunday, everybody. Much more than, you're going to have your come to Jesus moment. You want it, you got it. I'm trying to save you. You think you're saving me. Ha! But Rick Scott, when he was governor, literally spent $77 million on the unemployment processing system that we have here in Florida. And now the people inside the DeSantis administration are speaking out because they understand people here are livid. They can't get through the unemployment sign-up process. It takes days because you'll be in the middle of it and it'll kick you off, or you'll be in the middle of it and the freaking thing will crash, or they have to send you a PIN number through your phone. It doesn't come through, and then you have to call somebody, and then your application is just gone. It's just gone. So the people inside the DeSantis administration who are giving you your ability to, come to Jesus, it's truly on Sunday, they are ratting out Rick Scott, the senator, and saying, when he spent that $77 million on the system, he designed it so that it would be user unfriendly. He designed it to limit the number of people who could get through the process so that he could save businesses unemployment insurance tax, because Florida's unemployment numbers would look so low that they wouldn't have to collect unemployment tax from the employers at the same rate. And it freaking worked. It literally saved billions of dollars in payments to the unemployment system in the state of Florida from businesses. It literally worked. It was designed to fail. Now, if you think your government just is incompetent, well, good for you. I'm telling you, I find them to be much more nefarious. So, again, the incompetence of Trump is legion, okay? It is. And Rick DeSantis, obviously. But when you find out that the dirty, seamy side of the story, the true side of the story, is that it was designed to fail, you have to ask yourself, why? Why? Money? Power? Crushing people's heads feels good to you? What, you're a sadist? What is? There are websites for that. I mean, I just, for the life of me, and all week long, article after article and report after report, they knew. The Trump administration was briefed when Obama was coming in. The Trump administration gamed out a pandemic in 2017. The Trump administration was briefed in February of 2020 about this pandemic. I mean, all these things, and now we find out, and I've known this story. Remember I told you about this group called Predict that he dismantled? Well, it turns out that Predict was the name is Predict. And what they predicted was that there were 160 novel coronaviruses and that they had trained 7,000 people to go out in the world, 7,000 medical, 7,000 agricultural sectors in 30 countries in Asia and Africa and the Middle East to help them detect deadly new viruses. And last September, Donald Trump defunded the whole thing. Dennis Carroll, who was the widely respected scientist who headed it inside of USAID, he retired because they shut it down. And his quote to the paper today was, well, the program had essentially collapsed into hibernation, and so he just retired. But they literally laid off all these trained people, and they were working inside China. They were working, and they were training scientists in China. They were training other countries' scientists, Africa and the Middle East, to detect and respond to exactly this coronavirus. It was an early warning program. So how can you say that this is just incompetence? Tom in Florida.
Ravishing Randy, how are you?
How are you?
I am good. We've got some very hungry children up here. We're about 30 miles north of Panama City, and the Hurricane Michael devastated us, and just started coming back together. And this area here, Panama City, the beach is primarily a tourist thing.
It's real pretty up there, though.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's great. Problem is many of the restaurants, service places have closed, and which put a tremendous amount of single mothers out of work. And I was just kind of wondering that they have absolutely no income. They live out in the rural community like I do. And during the hurricane, the MREs came, which saved a lot of people.
Wow,
And
that's so sad.
Yeah, and I've heard virtually no one speak of possibility of releasing some more MREs. I don't know what the stockpile is.
Huh. It's not your stockpile, it's their stockpile. Yeah, you're going to hear a lot of this. I'm telling you, America is literally being burned to the ground.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
We say 6 feet away from each other, but when you go out for food or you go out to the pharmacy, there's going to be times when, unwittingly, you're going to be closer than that. And given the fact that we know that asymptomatic people are clearly transmitting infection, it just makes common sense that it's not a bad idea to do that. It's not going to be 100%. And it's more not to protect you from getting infected, but to protect a person from getting infected from you. So if everybody, in an altruistic way, said, I'm assuming I'm infected, and I don't want to infect anybody else. So when I go out in a situation where I can't guarantee I'm 6 feet away from someone, why don't I just put some sort of covering there? And that's the thing that some people are already spontaneously doing anyway, but whether or not it's going to be an official recommendation, I think is going to come soon one way or the other.
Oh, good God. We're all going to need something to cover our faces, everybody. I mean, for anybody who ever criticized Islam, maybe you ought to rethink. They wash their hands 5 times a day. They're covered. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, it's on you. Sometimes it's on you. Joe in New York.
Hi, Randy. I just wanted to say that, thanks for taking my call, but while Trump was doing all the golfing and everything, the world was going around looking for supplies. And our companies here in America were shipping supplies to them.
So was
Trump. They were shipping ventilators.
So was Trump. So was Donald Trump. Donald Trump, literally this week, Donald Trump called Thailand and asked Thailand if they had any masks, gowns, ventilators, whatever. And they said, you just sent us a load of gowns and masks and ventilators. And then we find out in the months of January and February, when we knew all this was, active, when it was really going to happen, USA Today reported that Donald Trump sold $17.5 million worth of face masks, $13.6 million in surgical garments, and $27.2 million of ventilators to China.
17.8 tons.
Unbelievable.
Randy, can you play on March 17th when Trump declared the pandemic response team that he took apart and he bragged about it? And then on March 19, when he told Alcinda that he doesn't know anything about it.
Oh, when he said he didn't take apart the pandemic response in the NSC, and then yeah, I can find
right
that.
On the 13th, he said that he took it apart because he's a businessman.
Yeah, and he didn't want people sitting around doing nothing.
Right. And then on the 19th, he said, "Hey, you know nothing about it."
Right. That's right. I mean, the lies are endless. The lies are freaking endless. So
I think it's up to about 30,000 now.
It's unbelievable. Well, 214 days till an election, we think. Now, you want to hear a clip that's even more important than the one that he said about, I took the pandemic team apart at the National Security Council. I told John Bolton to do it. Right? He said because they were sitting around doing nothing, and he's a businessman, and he doesn't like paying people to sit around and do nothing. This is what he accused the pandemic team inside the National Security Council of doing, nothing. And then when Yamiche Alcindor from PBS asked about it, he said he didn't know anything about it. Okay, but what's even worse than that particular clip, and this is one we really need to call the media, we need to call MSNBC, we need to call CNN. They need to play this one. I don't think they've ever even played it except in its live form over and over and over and over and over again. This is the one where Donald Trump says that if we had elections, that the Democrats are crazy, right? And if we had elections, I don't know which one this is. I'm looking. I'm going to try and find it. But if we had elections, by mail, and everybody was sent a ballot who needs one, who's supposed to get one, that the Republicans would never, ever, ever get elected ever again. Because I really do believe that this is the crux of what he's thinking when he mismanages, or whatever you want to call this, when he allows Americans to die. I really do.
It's just the common facts. I mean, they have a majority in the House, and therefore you need their vote, and they want to get certain things. I will tell you this. If you look at before and after, the things they had in there were crazy. They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again. They had things in there about, election days and what you do and all sorts of clawbacks. And they had things that were just totally crazy.
Yeah, voting is crazy, Voting is crazy. And they had things, the Democrats had things in there so that people could vote in the middle of a pandemic. Politico had an article today, finally, and it said that Donald Trump's political operation is launching a multi-million-dollar legal campaign aimed at blocking Democrats from changing voting rules in response to the coronavirus outbreak. What the Democrats wanted to do is they wanted to send ballots by mail to people in Wisconsin, to people in New Mexico, to people in Pennsylvania, to people in Georgia. And the Trump administration does not want vote by mail in any of these states that don't already have, and so the Trump apparatus is very well organized, and they're fighting the Democrats over changes that would allow people to vote in the middle of this pandemic. I swear to God, it's the sleeper story. It's this, because when I sit here and rack my brain about why is he doing this, why is he burning this whole place down to the ground, it has to go back to everything is about him, right? I mean, that's all he ever shows you, is every single thing is about him. So if everything is about him and he understands that he will go to jail because, remember, one of the most devastating things that Mueller testified to go back to that, right, is that he believed that he could prosecute Donald Trump once he left office. And everybody knows it. Everybody does. Including Donald Trump and including the Trump administration, including these governors. And so he cannot allow himself to lose because he will die in jail. And so it seemed to me that this, at first, was something he wanted to deny was happening because he was unprepared and didn't give a damn, and was selling and selling a lot of stuff to China, not soybeans. Oh, no, farmers. He was selling our PPE. He was selling our ventilators. He was selling our surgical gowns. He was selling our gloves. He was selling our face masks, our N95 masks, to China. Now, President Xi, is his beloved friend. He loves him. He says it all the time. He loves President Xi, the autocrat, the dictator, the communist Red China leader. And, you know, it is the People's Communist, Republic of China. It is communist, And Donald Trump loves him. So if people are going to blame China, why didn't his best friend tell him? Because he did!
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Does it make sense to you that some states are still not issuing stay-at-home orders? I mean, whether there should be a federally mandated directive for that or not, I guess that's more of a political question, but just scientifically, doesn't everybody have to be on the same page with this stuff?
Yeah, I think so, Anderson. I don't understand why that's not happening. As you said, the tension between federally mandated versus states' rights to do what they want is something I don't want to get into. But if you look at what's going on in this country, I just don't understand why we're not doing that. We really should be.
Oh, my God. Dr. Fauci sitting there saying, I don't know why we're not doing a national. I don't know why we just don't all do it at the same time, shut everything down, everybody stay home for 6 weeks, and just get rid of this thing. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing that? Why do we have a president who is pitting one state against the other? Why do we have a president who's in court right now doing two things, trying to undo the ACA, and trying to prevent people from having ways to vote that would be safe in a pandemic? Like drive-through voting, mail-in voting, set up tents so everybody could be outside and not in a gymnasium or in a church basement or in a closed situation. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want that. He is literally fighting these two things in court. And, somebody sent me this. I forgot all about this, but this is a flashback. This is from 2014 when Donald Trump was calling Fox News in the morning because, he had nobody to call and nothing to do all day except slap his name on various buildings that other people built and lose money. But he was on Fox News in 2014 talking about Obamacare. And saying that people would quit their jobs because health care wouldn't go through their employers anymore, right? They could go out on the free market and they could purchase health care on their own and maybe start their own business like me. And he was totally against this because he didn't think people would leave corporate and go out on their own and do a small business. He just thought they would sit home on their couches and pay, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000 a month for health coverage. I mean, the man is an idiot. But this is what he said. He said this is the cure for Obamacare. This was the cure for turning back America, for turning the clock back.
You know what solves it? When the economy crashes, when the country goes to total hell, and everything is a disaster, then you'll have you'll have riots to go back to where we used to be when we were great.
Oh, my God. Yeah. You want to hear it again? It's just amazing.
You know what solves it? when the economy crashes, when the country goes to total hell, and everything is a disaster, then you'll have you'll have riots to go back to where we used to be when we were great.
That's our president. Yeah, that's him. That's him. And you know, everybody, he's number one on Facebook. No, he's not. Not even close. I think Obama has like 56 million people that like his page and follow his page. Donald Trump about half of that. It's true. And there are like some, teen stars that have, like twice that. Just saying. All right, Gail in Illinois.
Hi. I'm in Central Illinois, where the University of Illinois is. We are having a debacle for testing. I understand now that they do have tests available in the emergency rooms and stuff like that. There's a doctor that is in charge of convenient care here in Champaign, Illinois. He's saying that there's a huge influx of people, and those numbers are underreported with COVID-19. So he wanted to test everyone. He purchased with his own money $30,000 worth of tests from the same companies that are supplying our emergency rooms, and set up a schedule for us to come through a drive-through for testing. And he said, if you don't have insurance, it's okay. I'll take a hit. I want everyone tested. Do you know that they shut him down 30 minutes before we were to go through the lines?
Who did?
The health department here in Champaign. And it was so weak. I mean, they highly embarrassed this man, and they said, well, you know what? You're not following the CDC guidelines. CDC guidelines say you are not to test the asymptomatic people. How in the heck are we supposed to track how we're catching all this crap if no one tests the people who don't have symptoms?
Well, I think the problem is processing those tests, okay? So here's the situation we find ourselves in. You know, a well-meaning doctor wants to do tests. He purchases the tests, right? He purchases, the swabs and every other thing. But where is he sending the tests to be processed? Is he sending it to LabCorp? Is he sending it to Quest? Because those private companies are backlogged with hundreds of thousands of tests that they've not processed yet. Where was he sending them to be, done?
From what was written in the newspaper, they said that he purchased them from the same supplier that our hospitals are purchasing from.
I get that
the
part.
labs that do the hospital testing are also the labs that are going to be doing his testing.
Well, if it's Quest or LabCorp, those labs can't process the tests that they already have.
I could see that.
Right. And so that's why this whole thing is a giant cluster F, okay?
So will we ever be able to test people?
Yeah, they have.
He says that the University of Illinois has such a large number of people who are
all right, so
positive.
when you're talking about testing an enormous amount of people, there's a Swiss company called Roche, right? And Roche has a different testing mechanism, a different way of doing it. And Roche can do what they call high throughput, meaning they could do a lot of tests at one time. I don't know what their exact number is that they can process.
High volume.
Okay, but then when you look at Abbott, which is the quick test, right? Abbott can only do one test at a time. So it just depends on who's doing the test, what lab it's going to, and what system they're using, because the president has shown zero leadership to get it all the same, to get everybody on the same page with regard to tests, okay? And that is why he sucks.
We really need to be educated about this situation.
Okay, so there are different tests now, and some of them, do they use the old LabCorp system or they use the old Quest system. Okay, cheap, easy way to do it. Then they re-outfitted some of those labs with Roche equipment, but the Roche tests can't be processed. The previous tests can't be processed on the Roche high throughput machines. So any tests that were done the original way can't be processed on the high throughput machines. Now Abbott's come out with a new instant test. They only have 18,000 of them.
I was going to ask you about that.
Right.
How about the instant?
Right. There's only 18,000 of them, and they can only do one test at a time. So those are the ones that are being, requested. I don't know that they're being sent to urgent cares and to medical doctors' offices so that before you leave, like if you showed up with flu or strep throat, they could tell you if you had flu or strep throat. But they can only process one test at a time. So all these tests are not the same and not compatible, which I told you at the beginning.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The Surgeon General was on with us just yesterday and said, my advice is that the 30-day guidelines to stay home from the federal government amount to a national stay-at-home order. Is that how you see it, too? Do you agree?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at what's in those 30-day recommendations of the guidelines, that's essentially what it is. I mean, I know it's difficult, but we're having a lot of suffering, a lot of death. This is inconvenient from an economic and a personal standpoint, but we just have to do it. That is our major weapon against this virus right now. Yeah. We don't have a vaccine that's deployable. This is the only thing we have. And we can get through it if everybody really leans forward and pushes on this.
So that's all we have. That's all we have. The awesome, exceptional United States of America. All we have is to stay home. That's what we have. All right, Tim in California.
I tried to get in yesterday. You were talking all day about how you couldn't understand what the cause of all this was, what their reasoning is. What it is, I think, is that right before this came, all of the Democrats and all of the left-wing media were saying we need a huge surge in order to beat Trump. And I think the whole thing, all the way to like the remaining red states that won't have that won't tell everybody to stay home, is that they're trying to like slow down, make sure there is no surge.
Surge in what? What are you talking about?
Barely gets in.
What are you talking about? A surge of what?
The surge we need in order to elect either Biden or Bernie or whoever. I think that's all it is. It's the whole thing is just political. As far as Trump is concerned, he doesn't care how many people die as long as he maintains his power.
So you think it's about voting?
Huh?
You think it's about...
I think what?
You think it's about voting?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think the whole thing is just to make sure there is no huge surge of voting against Trump.
Ah, surge of voting. I didn't know what you were talking. Surge what? I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
Anyway.
I think the voting thing is the sleeper story of the moment. I really do, because look, we're all dealing with this. Everybody's getting a little nervous. Some people are terrified. Some people are mildly scared. Some people are very scared. People don't know what to do. There's no national leadership. You've got states pitted against states. You've got unemployment systems literally failing. People can't apply. You've got small business that is freaking out. I know as a small business myself, I am freaking out. We don't know how to not, to stay home and keep this going at the same. Nobody knows what they're supposed to do. Restaurants are out, gymnasiums are out, and so people are very. What I was going to say is people are very, very, very pissed off and unhappy. And if we showed up to vote, I don't think he or any of these red state governors who are now being exposed as people who wanted systems that would not take claims for unemployment would not be able to give good guidance to the banks about these small business loans, right? They would sit home if they couldn't make themselves vote for a Democrat, or they would switch parties, and he can't have it because he will die in jail without the protection of the presidency. So I think that's the sleeper story. I think that's the one that's getting shoved under the radar because people are scared right now and people are going broke right now. But they are litigating all these voting issues about, the Democrats wanting to make voting in a pandemic possible. Like I said, through mail or through drive-thrus or through tents so that you're outdoors and you don't have to come and cut. Listen, Tuesday next week, Wisconsin is going ahead with their freaking primary. And because there are no drive-thrus, because they haven't set up tents, because people have to go into schools, because people have to go into churches, because people have to go inside to vote, poll workers are flipped out because they have to come in contact with the public. People are urging people to show up in Wisconsin for the Democratic primary, so naturally they're Democrats, and they're being trashed for asking people to go out and vote. And both sides have an argument, except one side is literally arguing against elections. And that will be their position in November, too. Against elections. Instead of innovating new ways to have elections, you're going to see an entire population argue against having elections. And I do think that's the big sleeper story here. I can't come up with any other reason why this man would be selling in the middle of January and February during a pandemic. Look, 62 countries had shut down Chinese citizens from arriving on their shores before the United States did. That's a dirty little secret of one of his, great lies. But they had done it because China warned people that they had this outbreak in Hubei province, the capital, the province whose capital is Wuhan. Okay? And Donald Trump decided that would be a great time to sell millions of dollars worth of PPE to China and sent planes over, sent stuff over to Thailand. Bangkok this week said, why are you calling us to ask us if we have this? You sold it to us. Why would he do that? Why is the only defense that we have, according to the only person that you can trust, Anthony Fauci, locking yourself in your house? I mean, this is biblical. It truly, it really, really, really is. And now he's talking about churches and Easter, and you got red state governors, Mike DeWine in Ohio, who was early on the stay-at-home order, is saying, oh, yeah, but you could have church. You could go to church. They're going to be spreading a lot more than the word. Why? What is this really about? Brother David.
Sister.
Amen.
I will tell you what it's really about. Quick shout out to the chat room. Never has it been more important. Get everyone to go to the Twitter feed and or the website. Stay virtually connected. Stay at home. Okay, here we go. It's totally, you're dead on about the elections. And it's about the authoritarian part of what was already the controlling interest, or thought itself so, latching on to something that can't be controlled by anybody and that we don't know anything about. And it's what we talked about the last time, the earth saying, hey, I'll go to your rooms and think about what you've done. To grab the reins of power while it's still there, and we are going to end up in one of two places if it continues thus. We're either going to be in Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which means we all go, or we're going to be in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, which at least has a shred of hope after the mutation has happened.
We've already diminished Orwell. We've already made Orwell.
Bingo.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And Ken Vonnegut, too. And Bradbury.
Yeah.
Right now we're in the Twilight Zone. And Grover Norquist, wherever he is, I wish no ill on the departed, is just jumping up and down because the government is becoming small enough to drown in a bathtub. But there's still more of us. And now we just have to connect the way you and I are connecting. We have to connect even though it's done because it's just too calculated. It just looks too calculated.
Here's the message. Look, here's the message I want to put out there. Okay?
Please.
Over and over and over and over. for anybody who finds themselves advocating against an election in November or any of the primary elections, there is a way to have a free and fair election in this awesome, awesome United States of America. It involves doing it with drive-through voting, with tent cities of voting, with with mail-in ballots, where we don't have to put poll workers in harm's way, and we don't have to leave our houses sometimes, and we don't. Do you know what I'm saying? You don't have to leave your car.
I know exactly what you're saying.
It just takes a little thought, a little creativity, if you will, if you must, if you may. And if you find yourself advocating to shut down any free and fair election in these United States, you are on the wrong side of history.
Amen.
Amen.
The
Love you.
people are coming. Love you back.
They will come. They will come. We just have to get a little more creative about how we organize ourselves. I'm telling you, people are literally going to start arguing against elections. You need to tell them, just be creative. Have a weekend.